The Irish landscape is complex and varied, and it determined how people lived. Even in a small townland, you can imagine that there are such a variety of different types of landscapes. There could be mountainous land, boggy land, hilly land, and even coastal areas had their own types of landscape. So people were very reliant on their local area and the resources that they used from them. Imagine living back 100 years ago and you had to get materials to build a house. So imagine your own locality. Where would you get the wood? What type of wood was it? Where would you get the stone? If it was by the sea, was all the stone? Did you get it from the beach and it was rounded? Where would you get sand? Or even for your roof, did you get slate or would you find straw to thatch your house? In the Ireland of 1850s, most people lived off the land and were reliant on it for their way of life. Here's Sean with more information.
People used natural materials that were grown in the local landscape or indeed strewn about the local landscape to make the everyday objects that they needed to sustain their families and indeed to provide shelter for their families. Natural resources were used to make similar objects from different materials depending on their availability in a given area. Straw was a huge one. Straw was made to making chairs, straw mattresses, horses' collars, and hens' nests and baskets. It was strong, it was pliable, easy to use, readily available, and it also had insulation qualities very necessary for thatching and for the making of hens' nests. Houses in general looked very different from the houses of today. In fact, houses looked quite different depending on the region. If your house was anywhere on the western seaboard, from Donegal down to Kerry, then you built your house in a hollow or in a valley with the gable end facing the broad Atlantic. This was to protect against storms. Also, your roof would have been tied on with sugan rope. Whereas if you came from the Midlands, your house was built on a higher plane close to the local roads and the local fields. Houses now were made of raw materials found locally such as stone, soil, wattles, mud and wood, sometimes bound together by ox blood. The final rendition was always lime plaster and lime whitewash or seashells. Lime plaster came from lime that was burned in a kiln and then used as a paste or a plaster on the stone and the mud. Finally, the last coat was a lime wash or a whitewash, and that was applied by brush, very similar to the modern painting techniques of today. The roof of the house was of course made from thatch. Wheaten straw, oaten straw, barley or rye straw was used for the thatch. If that was unavailable, then people used rushes or reeds or marmot grasses to thatch the house.